Hi, welcome to the Real Slim Katie channel. I'm Katie, and this is my vlog, Taming the Beast. This is episode 4, which I've entitled, Spiraling Out of Control. If you're new to the channel, this is a 1,300-page medical record covering the last 21 years of my life. Within these pages are 32 diagnoses and 50 prescriptions I've received. Among these diagnoses are conditions such as depression, anxiety, OCD, Bipolar 2, borderline personality disorder, fibromyalgia, severe obesity, severe opiate addiction, severe alcoholism, among other things. If you watched episode 3, I covered the births of my first 2 children, postpartum depression, a new prescription I received, this time for Wellbutrin, another failed attempt at college, and I also continued my addictive eating habits, and I had massive increases in my weight. I began to experience physical problems such as chronic pain and gallbladder problems, which drove me to the hospital, to the ER, where I was prescribed morphine and Percocet for pain. This episode is the most difficult one I've had to record to this point. The events I will discuss are difficult for me to recount without becoming emotional, so bear with me if I do cry. This episode begins shortly after the birth of my 3rd son in December of 2009. I was preemptively prescribed Effexor in addition to the Wellbutrin I was already taking because I had had a history of postpartum depression. The doctors feared I would once again have it and that Wellbutrin had not been enough in the past. 6 months after he was born, I went in to have my gallbladder removed. Because I had been suffering with gallbladder pain throughout pregnancy, I had also been taking Percocet throughout pregnancy. It was something I had already grown accustomed to. I had yet to abuse it to the lengths that I would abuse it in the future, but I did enjoy the effects, if I'm being honest. In July of 2010, I seek medical treatment for diffuse joint pain and muscular pain throughout my body. I'm convinced I have rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia or some such inflammatory condition. I went through extensive testing, x-rays, and MRIs. I also had blood work done. The doctors could find no clear evidence that I was suffering from any such condition, such as fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis at this point. What I believe was really happening is that I was having micro withdrawals from the opiates I was taking. If you take opiates and you suddenly stop, your body starts to feel like you've been run over by a train. You go through body aches, sweating, terrible pain, everything hurts until you can get another dose of opiates in your body. This is the kind of pain I was feeling. I was also struggling with suicidal ideation. I was still continuing to be aggressive towards my husband. And I was overall incredibly unhappy with my life. I'm starting to have strange pains in my rib areas on the sides of my body, and I seek treatment for that as well. This time I'm prescribed Vicodin, which I continue to refill as often as possible. In December of 2011, I'm given a new doctor. This doctor is more aggressive than the previous doctors, and she's very free with the prescriptions that she gives me. She sees that I'm having depression, suicidal ideation, diffuse joint pain, among other problems. So she increases my medication. Now I am taking 4 psych meds. I am taking Lamictal, Effexor, Wellbutrin, and Trazadone. In addition to these, I'm also taking a muscle relaxer called Robaxin, as well as a regular prescription of Percocet to deal with pain. In addition to the new prescriptions I've been given, I have been diagnosed with 3 new conditions. These are obstructive sleep apnea, GERD, which is also known as Gastro-Esophageal Reflux Disease, as well as Bipolar 2 disorder. Now I have to sleep with a CPAP machine, which is a mask over my face every night. I now have a medication for every possible ailment I feel like I have. And still, I am unhappy and having problems in my personal life as well in my daily life. Despite being on all of these medications and having all of these diagnoses, I still feel like I have something to offer the world and that I want to be out in the world bettering myself. So I attempt school yet again in September of 2011. This attempt doesn't last very long, only the first quarter before I realize that there's just too many things stacked against me. It's too difficult to continue on when I'm on so many medications, battling so many addictive behaviors all at the same time. After yet another failed attempt at college, I pick up a book that looks like it would be a nice escape for me. It's called 50 Shades of Grey. And I've heard all the hype about this book. It seems like such a great book about a girl and, she falls in love, there's amazing sex, it's exciting, there's bad guys after her. None of it's realistic. Reading this book was an escape for me. However, it was also a way for me to compare my life to the life that no one has, but I thought that I should have, or that I could have. I began to see my life as burdensome and something I didn't want to continue. So I started having the suicidal ideation. I started reading the book as a way to escape and dreading any time I had to not read. I had to be present. It was terrible for me. Slipping into a fantasy world inside a book is a lot like losing touch with reality. However, there was one night where I actually did lose touch with reality. I don't know if it was the influences of the medications or the stress in my life or a combination of both. But I was convinced, literally convinced, that my neighbors were going to kill me. I sat in my hallway and cried on the phone to my mom for 2 hours because I was afraid to go out into my living room because I was certain I would get shot through my front window. After crying uncontrollably for 2 hours while my 3 children slept and my husband was at work, I gained the courage to crawl to my bedroom across the house so I could get into my own bed. Once I got into my bed, I still laid there in fear for 2 more hours, certain I was going to die that night. I now know that this is what is called a paranoid delusion, but at the time, I cannot express to you how real it felt, how I was certain there were people that were out to get me, and that night I would lose my life. The impact of losing myself in the books, losing myself in the paranoid delusion that I was going to get killed, and the stress of my life was becoming too much for me to bear. Shortly after the paranoid delusion, there was a morning where I was particularly stressed out. My husband offered to take my children to the park for me, which was just down the street. After he left, I searched my kitchen and I found the largest, sharpest knife I could find. And I proceeded to cut myself. I cut my arms. I cut them here, and I cut them here, repeatedly, over and over and over again, until blood ran down my arms. My husband returned home sooner than I had expected with my 3 sons. They had forgotten something at home, and he caught me in our bedroom cutting myself. At which point I ran to our bathroom and locked myself in, and he banged on the door begging for me to let him in because he was certain I was going to kill myself. My 3 sons were in the hallway terrified, not knowing what was happening. and my oldest caught a glimpse of my bloody arm. That day, my husband called 911, and I was taken to the hospital, where I was given an assessment and admitted into a psych ward. This is something that's not easy for me to talk about because it was incredibly painful to me and to my husband at the time. And it was terrifying for my 3 children. Looking back on these events now, they seem like a nightmare, like something that really didn't happen. But it did. The combination of the 4 psych meds, the muscle relaxer, the Percocet, the multiple diagnoses, the physical pain I was feeling, the addictive eating habits, the constantly watching TV, the lack of social interaction, and the self-loathing for my failures and the way I consistently treated my husband had all created a perfect storm for me to spiral out of control. Thank you for sticking with me through a difficult episode while I recount my past. If you like my story, or you know of anyone that might benefit from watching my episodes, please like, share, or subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments. And on that note, I want to wish each and every one of you an inspired day. Thank you for watching.